perhaps our long national nightmare of woke Twitter will finally come to an end if Elon Musk has anything to do with it. Today, a lot of moving parts in this Elon Musk story that we want to get to because it all goes to censorship, right? It's all part of it. So let's get through it. So let's kind of go through the timeline here if we could. So 2 weeks ago, Elon Musk suddenly brought up the idea that, holy smokes, I'm going to invest in Twitter, and became the largest shareholder in Twitter's history. So owned more shares than even Jack Dorsey, the CEO, the founder of Twitter. And then the board reached out to him and said, hey, do you want to join Twitter? Do you want to come over and join us on Twitter to become since you're its largest shareholder? Then he said, no, thank you. And then everyone wondered, like, well, why would he do that? Well, if you understand anything about boards, you know that you can't really have activist board members. You've got to pretty much fall in line. So he's like, no, if I'm on the board, then I can't really shake things up as much as I'd like to. So I'm not going to do this. A lot of people thought, oh, is a hostile takeover coming next? And a hostile takeover would mean that he would offer to buy up all of the shares and take over the company. And that's exactly what we got today.
David called this one, actually. I'm going to give you that one, David.
Props.
Thank you.
Props. He said, I made an offer. And he made an offer. He made an offer to take over the company. He offered buying all outstanding shares of Twitter for higher than he paid for his shares. Now, to be clear about this, $54.20, right? $54.20 is, in my mind, a really fantastic number. I mean, it's trading at about $45 right now. So this is well above what he even paid for his shares and spiked the price. So this is even higher than where, but no, apparently that's not good enough. He was rebuffed because late this afternoon, Crown Prince, who owns millions of shares, is one of the top shareholders in Twitter, came out and said, no, your price is too low. We think that the value of Twitter is much higher than that. Sorry, we're not going to do that. But now Elon Musk has a plan B because this was all unfolding this afternoon. Like, well, what's going to happen now? And then he was in the middle of a talk and he was asked about what he's going to do if that plan doesn't go forward for him to buy up all these shares. Listen.
Last week when we spoke, Elon, I asked you whether you were thinking of taking over. You said no way. You said, I do not want to own Twitter. It is a recipe for misery. Everyone will blame me for everything. What on earth changed?
No, I think everyone will still blame me for everything. Yeah. If I acquire Twitter and something goes wrong, it's my fault, 100%. I think there will be quite a few errors. Yes.
It will be miserable, but you still want to do it. Why?
I mean, I hope it's not too miserable, but I just think it's important to the fun. It's important to the function of democracy. It's important to the function of the United States as a free country and many other countries, and to help freedom in the world more broadly than the U.S. And so I think it's a. I think there's the risk, civilizational risk. Is decreased if Twitter, the more we can increase the trust of Twitter as a public platform. And so I do think this will be somewhat painful, and I'm not sure that I will actually be able to acquire it. And I should also say the intent is to retain as many shareholders as is allowed by the law in a private company, which I think is around 2,000 or so. So it's not like it's definitely not from the standpoint of let me figure out how to monopolize or maximize my ownership of Twitter, but we'll try to bring along as many shareholders as we're allowed to.
You don't necessarily want to pay out 40 or whatever it is $1 billion in cash. You'd like them to come with you in the.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, I could technically afford it.
I heard that.
But what I'm saying is this is not a way to sort of make money. I think it's just that I think this could. My strong intuitive sense is that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization.
But you've described yourself.
I don't care about the economics at all.
So a couple of interesting things there. He's got a plan B. So now that he's really been rebuffed on being able to buy Twitter because of this crown prince, so he has a plan B. I'm curious. We're going to find out more about what that exactly is. But the second piece is that he says it was kind of quiet and he mentioned it, But he's talked about freedom and democracy, and he said more. He said even more than just the United States, like more than.
Yes, I picked up on that as well, and I feel like Americans don't really understand that. They were like, "What? What are you talking about?" But inside America, yes, we don't see this as a sort of watering hole for conversation, right? We see it as a place where conversation only we like, that only involves us. Like the American way of using Twitter is very ethnocentric, but he feels like for all democracy, there needs to be an open space to speak. And that I find that fascinating.
Well,
and there's a couple of speculation like that he would, because a lot of, when he made this announcement, a lot of people bought Twitter stock. And so if he dumps that because he's like, oh, this platform is useless, we know the kind of like power he has with predictions to Wall Street. He could tank that stock.
Well, and he could tank the stock.
Then he'd get another SEC violation on his back and have to.
No, I don't think that the real concern is, as a trader myself, the real concern here for that would be that there would be a lot of like generational bag holders. What I mean is there will be a lot of people who bought Twitter stock thinking that it's going to skyrocket. And then it peaked, it went up into like the 50s, and then now it plummets, and they're going to hold on as a bag holder. They're going to hold on for like 30 years, hoping that it actually goes above that $55 range again. Like they're just going to like, and they're going to keep holding, and it may never go back up.
Yeah.
Because he basically lifts it up and then it crashes.
Well, then I'm wondering how many people purchased because of that news. You know what I mean? Because like you look at like any of the, a
lot of people.
But that gives Twitter a fiduciary to shareholders to not rebuff him further, I would think. Because then shareholders, because you run the risk of shareholders, which has happened, suing the board for making a decision which tanked the company. That absolutely has happened, and this puts the board and owners of Twitter in a shaky place, because if they rebuff, especially now we're thinking about like there's two different things at play here. One, there's like running Twitter for a profitable company, which is the fiduciary that you have when you go public to your shareholders. But then there's also the idea of rejecting this offer because you worry about an actual democratizing of speech. Right. And if they make this sort of woke choice, I'm going to call it, then they're going to have to answer to the board for what they've done to their fiduciary responsibility. That's tricky.
And holy shit. I mean, here we are sitting here talking about this, and breaking news. We were just talking about Vanguard. We were just talking about BlackRock. We were just talking about these companies. And wouldn't you know it, in the last hour, Elon Musk is no longer now the largest shareholder of Twitter. Vanguard has now increased its stake in Twitter, making it now the largest shareholder in Twitter. So Vanguard has now pushed Elon Musk out as its largest shareholder. According to, this is live right now, according to the Wall Street Journal, Elon Musk is no longer Twitter's largest shareholder. But so it's going to be really interesting to see like what his plan B is here, because you've got a lot of people, liberals are melting down over this. For instance, CUNY journalism professor Jeff Jarvis, who wrote the book What Would Google Do? He drew dramatic comparisons between, I'll put this tweet up here on the screen, dramatic comparisons between Musk's hostile takeover of Twitter and the German Reich, the Third Reich. Let me put up this. Look at this. Today on Twitter feels like the last evening in a Berlin nightclub at the twilight of Weimar, Germany. This is like so I love Ben Shapiro's response. Yes, Hitler was indeed famous for his attempts to broaden the mechanisms of free speech, just like Elon Musk. And it gets worse. Here's Max Boot.
This one blows my mind still. I'm frightened by the impact on society and politics if Elon Musk acquires Twitter. He seems to believe that on social media, anything goes. This line, I can't even read it with a straight face. For democracy to survive, we need more content moderation, not less. To which I love this response. Yes, tell me more about how the survival of democracy requires censorship. Like, how do you make this leap? I don't understand how you can say that free speech is anti-democratic. I did sort of go down this rabbit hole of like, what are these people thinking? Because these are academics who I have interacted with and listened to before. And the argument seems to go that censoring speech promotes engagement, but it only promotes engagement within a small subset of a spectrum of speech, right? And so they sort of liken it to censoring bots and spam. Like, hey, you know, if we just let bots and spam into our chat, it'd all be like all caps and crazy things. And so we need to get that out of here so we can all have a conversation. So then a dissenting opinion is like bot and spam. I cannot follow it. I literally cannot follow it.
I mean,
Yeah, and I see these polls. Sorry, Clayton. I see these polls that are like, you know, asking people, do you want more censorship? And you get like 20-30% of people saying yes. And I'm like, who are these people? Like, what kind of world do you want to live in where you're going to be controlled speech? Like, you can't hear certain narratives. Like, you want to be protected.
Understand it, because like I said, I was somebody who just didn't want to hear nonsense out of Trump, and I was like, get that guy out of here. And I guess there are things that I sort of cheered for people not to say because I didn't like it.
But that's what the block button is for.
Sure.
Right.
And I consider myself a liberal person. I'm socially very liberal. And so I have felt like, oh, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. Right. And so I've in the past have felt like maybe if those people can't speak, then more people will think like me. But that's very myopic. I'm admitting that it's myopic. I'm just sort of giving you it's not a rationale. It's a mindset.
Well, even some of the people that I respect, I mean, in the tech world, like someone like Jonathan Morrison, who he has a YouTube channel and does great work. I was reading some of his tweets when this news was coming out about Elon Musk, and it seems to me one of the big arguments is it's a lot of whataboutism, like, well, Elon sometimes blocks people that don't agree with him, so he's not a real free speech purist. It's like, well, no, he doesn't.
But that is free
attacked.
speech.
That is free speech. You don't have to stand there and be yelled at. You can walk away, and that's what he's like. Hey, you want to yell at me? I don't want to listen to that. Like, I don't want to be yelled at.
Yeah.
And Robert Reich, who former Clinton administration official, says, this is the same guy, that he, this isn't the tweet I was hoping for, but this morning Musk bid $54 by a share of Twitter, nearly 40% higher than stock before. Anyone concerned about another oligarch taking over a news source? Trump must never be allowed back on Twitter. I mean, like, talk about ridiculous. But Robert Reich specifically talked about, well, this is the same guy that didn't like that there was this young college kid who was tracking his private jet. So he reached out to the kid to buy him off or buy his loyalty or whatever. It's like, so I wouldn't, if someone stood out my house or was standing in front of my house, tweeting about my home address or constantly tracking my car, and tweeting about it, Clayton's going to the Wawa again to get another sandwich. Now he's going over here. He's going to have a toasty. He's going to stop over here and get a little toasty sandwich. Or now he's going to go get a coffee. And now he's going to the Home Depot to fix his toilets. I don't know that I would like that either. So Elon's like, hey, can you maybe not stop tracking my plane? Okay. But that's still free speech. He can tell the guy not to do it if he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But it's not like he got him and put him in prison or something.
Right. And
I
think
for him to be canceled.
People are calling him homophobic because he had said something about people using their pronouns, with all this pronoun stuff, people, just in their email signature saying he, she, her, whatever. You're allowed to find that annoying. Sure. You can still be for it. You can still be for whatever you want and say, oh, for goodness sakes, we're doing this now. Does that make you homophobic if you think,
I don't think so, because I feel that way.
Feel however you want that, but you're not a homophobe.
No,
so
not at
you
all.
can, sometimes people who sometimes I feel like, I don't even know if I want to go down this rabbit hole.
Well, here, let me play. Here's the tweet I was thinking about this Jonathan Morris thing. Two things can be true. Elon has done a lot great for tech. Elon preaches free speech, but does not like free speech against him. Oh, okay. He also epitomizes the ideology of let's throw money at a problem. Does he? I mean, okay. So
well, and the thing is, like,
Yes.
so what? If
in a lot
if
of
that's
ways,
the only
sure.
thing that works,
Boring
because
tunnels to fix traffic, yes.
right,
Making electric cars to save the planet, yes.
fighting against like massive regulation when you're up against the oil and gas and tire industry, like who
Well, and
don't
if you
want
don't,
you
like,
to do that.
those of us, like us regular people, we don't have the money like Vanguard and BlackRock to throw money at those things. So you have to have somebody that can kind of come in and does the counter to what the establishment is doing with all of our money to use his money to fight it. Like, that's the only way.
Yeah, like Action Jackson says, Clayton, you're thinking about getting a panini. Like, yeah, I don't need like a whole Twitter account devoted to my sandwich habits.
But I don't think he understands that he's going to get a lot of hate on Twitter, and he does already, and he will continue to, and he doesn't seem to really care that much about it.
No.
He at least is somebody who says how he feels, takes the punches, and then keeps going. So it's interesting to see how this will play out, and whether or not there are actually like, it does seem with this Vanguard move, there are people who are afraid of it and are going to compete with him to throw more money at the problem to not let him have this power.
But we're okay with people like Larry Fink over at BlackRock, who literally just moments ago it was announced is getting a 21% pay increase, so that he'll get $36 million for last year. Like, these are the guys that run the show. Like, you have Vanguard now edging Elon Musk out of Twitter so that we can't have free speech back on Twitter. And these guys control the narrative. Just look at these guys.
Yes.
BlackRock and Vanguard. I swear I'm going to be focusing more and more on these guys. It's important to know about this. And by the way, Jack Prosyabek, he did the TED Talk on it, by the way. He said you just can't keep printing infinite money, handing it to your rich friends at BlackRock without getting massive inflation. Thank you for attending my TED Talk.
Well, I was going to say, anybody that's, you're looking to rent a home these days in 2022 or 2023, chances are you're going to be renting it from BlackRock now.
Yes, yeah.